Is there a new playoff format coming? Could it mean 9 games in an SEC schedule for the Sooners coming forward? We'll discuss coming up next year on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. You want to interact with us more, just go subscribe to the Locked On Sooners Insider Program by texting Sooners to 405-817-6711. That's Sooners to 405-817-6711, where we'll answer your questions. We'll chat with you about all things Oklahoma Sooners and may or may not drop a little inside tidbit.
A little something.
Ask us the questions. You never know. We might have a little something sometimes. Again, 405-817-6711. Jay, there might be a new college football playoff format coming in the near future. We know that the current contract runs through 2025. After that, it's anybody's guess as to how this thing is going to look. There's a lot of discussion about a 14 team, a 16 team, and how that could impact future scheduling in the SEC. What do you make of this, Jay? Where do you think this is all going to end up?
They're going to add more games. There's so much money in college football right now to be made for all the fat cats up there in the suits at the top. There's just so much profits there available for them. And because of that, they're going to try their hardest to take advantage of this opportunity and add more games that kind of dilutes the fun and the competition of college football. I don't want more playoff teams, but it's going to happen. It's inevitable. And right now, like you mentioned, one of the big things that the push is to get the SEC to go to 9 games. I know that's been a big push by ESPN. It's been a big push by commissioner in a way, but the schools are kind of like, if we're going to do that, you got to pay up the money. They got to pay more money for us to give you one more game because that takes away from the non-con and all of that. Well, to fix a little bit of that, it sounds like the SEC and the Big Ten are also working on a scheduling format to where they play against each other a lot more, which gives you more marquee games. Sounds enticing, but it also requires a substantial amount of not only travel but cost when it comes to trying to buy tickets at these stadiums. I mean, I know that Michigan game is going to be absurd this year when they come to Norman this coming season. And then next season going to Ann Arbor. It's going to be dumb. Texas going to Ohio State. It's going to be ridiculous. But, I mean, that's what, the fans want. They want some of that stuff early in the season to go with late. But, John, I don't know how I feel about another shakeup in the playoffs again. I kind of want us to go back down. Can we go to like 8? Give us a little bit more meaning throughout the year? Or find a way to create a format where the playoffs encompass the conference championship to where when you get to the conference champion, they're the one left in the playoffs. That, to me, would be a lot better in comparison to what they're trying to do now.
Yeah, 12 this year just felt like it was about right, but maybe too many. When you go to 16, you're going to start seeing these 9-3 teams making the playoff. You're going to see Alabama or South Carolina from this past season in the playoff. Now, that could have been more exciting because you had maybe a South Carolina team that was trending in a really good direction, just beat Clemson, a team that did make the playoff. But yeah, it's fascinating to see how this is all playing out. There's discussion about 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten. And I don't know if I love that necessarily because, okay, yes, are these the 2 stronger conferences in college football? Sure. Are they going to beat up on each other in conference? Absolutely. If we're having a Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement down the road, is there going to be more beating up? Yeah, you're going to see teams that are going to take more L's than they might normally in conference play, especially if the SEC is going to have a 9-game SEC schedule. You're just creating a much more difficult schedule. And if you're Oklahoma, you should never be afraid of that. You're Oklahoma. At the same time, it's going to create some 4-loss teams where you're like, man, how'd they get 4 losses? But they still might be one of the better teams in the country. It's just that the schedule is that tough. So, but I don't love the idea of the automatic bids just because I need a little bit more flexibility. When there's 134 teams in the FBS level and you're telling me that you're guaranteeing 4 of those spots to the SEC, 4 of those spots to the Big Ten. That seems a little rich for me. I think 2 or I think guarantee everybody 2, and then the rest of it can be, we'll just see how it all lands.
Yeah, that's kind of a level-headed take on it, because that's what I want as well. I would prefer for us to play in that format, but here's the problem, John. Does that bring in money?
I mean, networks are going to want the money. The conferences are going to want the money. It's all going to come down to that. And listen, I know people hate where college football is now because they say it's all about the money. Well, for 40 years, it's been all about the money. It's always been about the money. Ever since Oklahoma sued and got their rights, their broadcast rights, the ability to sell their broadcast rights, it changed the landscape of college football. And so for the last 40 years, we've seen this evolution take place to where administrators have to think about the bottom line and what it's going to mean for their program. And in this new era where rev sharing is going to be a part of it, and schools have to figure out a way to not only pay their football players, but pay their non-rev athletes as well. These ADs, these presidents, these conference directors, these conference presidents or commissioners, I guess is the terminology, they have to look at that bottom line as well. And it sucks because it takes some of the quote unquote purity out of the sport, the amateur athleticism out of the sport that people loved for many, many years. But this is better for the players because they're actually getting some compensation for the money that they make the universities beyond the scholarships. It just, I think as somebody who was for playoff expansion, I think getting to 16 and saying automatically 4 SEC teams have to be in, automatically 4 Big Ten teams have to be in, is just too rich for my blood.
Yeah, it's too many games too. Like, I want these games to be done. Like, I put it this way. I am not for the Rose Bowl being the site for the national championship. This isn't baseball. This isn't softball where you can play 2 or 3 games in a day and have multiple games within a week and stack it up, where that makes sense to do that in one location. That's cool because, I mean, even just like an NCAA tournament, you know, basketball, you can do that same thing. You can play more than one game in a week and be okay. You can't do that in football. So it's not fun for the Rose Bowl to be the final spot. I like that moved around so everybody has different places they can visit or whatnot if their team makes it. That's what makes it fun. But I do like the idea of the college football season being done New Year's Day. That would be awesome if we could find a way to format this to where the season is done around the 1st, or at least that week, the week of the 1st. Make it done. Have the national championship on a Saturday, please.
Yes.
That would be amazing for us to be able to do that. Because if you have it on a Saturday, you really are going to get some eyeballs. You're really going to get people, because Monday night's terrible. Yep. Ratings are going to be there because people are going to be at home watching it. Those that are going to be able to travel will travel. But you put on a Saturday, people are really going to party.
Yeah.
It's going to be an entire day. It's going to be like the Super Bowl. It's going to be a spectacle. It's going to be a thing where people plan their entire weekend around this. Now we're trying to figure out, am I taking off work on Monday? If it's my team, I'm going to take off Monday and Tuesday and watch the game. But if it's not my team, no, you want to make it to where everybody makes this an entire event. The Super Bowl is an entire event regardless of whose team is in there. You either hate watching or you're watching with love or you're watching out of neutrality. You want to do that same thing for college football, and you can't do that having that game on Monday nights every year. Get rid of that. That's got to go. But I would like for it to be done by New Year's.
Yeah, that's got to go. The idea that a national championship game can be played the last week of January, you got to get that out of here. Throw that in the trash. It's got to be – I understand the 1st of January. You want it to be finished. That's fine. I'm fine with the 2nd weekend. Like, if you want to have all your New Year's Day – bowl games still a part of the college football playoff, and have your semifinal games on the 31st and the 1st, and then finish it that next weekend, by all means, I'm good with that. But by that 2nd weekend of January, you're done. College football is finished. And for those who are concerned about competing with the NFL, you do that all throughout the season anyway, right? Because you're playing on Thursday nights. You're trying to get eyeballs in the wintertime and really in December when the NFL goes to Saturday games. Who cares? Who cares that the NFL is playing alongside you? your product is strong enough that people are going to tune in because it's college football and it is still a very, very valuable product. So I'm not concerned about it. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out because playoff expansion is not done. They're going to go to 14 or 16 at some point, and the SEC is probably going to be locked in at 9 games in their schedule, which is going to create an interesting dynamic. What they do, are they going to go back to that 3 permanent opponents? Are they going to go back to divisions? What are they going to do with their scheduling format? Because the way it was the first year of expanded SEC, I don't think it's going to be sustainable long term.
Agreed.
Coming up, we're going to discuss what Oklahoma's weekend that looked like. It was great for some, not so great for others. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.